It's been a while since I made a serious comment on the state of gay youth, but a recent news story once more reminded me of how tragic it is that kids are still dying either for their real or supposed sexuality. I personally know a kid 30 years ago who I knew was gay, but he hadn't come out to anyone else. Matt's strict parents were local socialites who moved in all the right circles and attended church every Sunday, even if it was just so that mother could show off her new hat. Matt was an only child, an awkward kid with few friends, but he had so much weight resting on his shoulders. His future in his parents' eyes was already mapped out. Find a respectable girl, get married, raise children and take over the family law firm. He didn't stand a chance of fulfilling their dreams for him. I was shocked and horrified to learn that Matt, at age just 16, walked about 500 yards from his home to the railway line at night and laid down his neck on the track just before a train pelted through, decapitating himself in an instant. 30 years have passed, and I would have hoped that such tragedies would no longer happen, but teenage suicide, especially amongst gay youth, is as prevalent as ever. Harassment and violence towards gay youth, or even kids branded as gay by their classmates, continues unabated. On April 6 this year, Carl Joseph Walker Hoover was found by his mother hanging by an extension cord. He was just 11 years old. According to his mother, Carl was often the target of gay jokes and was threatened with physical violence on a daily basis. The young football and basketball athlete took his own life when anti-gay bullying and constant harassment became too much for him to endure. His mother had been pleading with the school since September last year to address the problem, but nothing was done. Carl had never identified himself as being gay, and at age 11 could scarcely have known what his sexuality was anyway, but he still died because of anti-gay harassment. He would have turned 12 just a few days ago on 17th of April. On April 16th, 11-year-old Jaheim Herrera came home from his Georgia elementary school and did the same thing. In 2007, 17-year-old Eric Mohat killed himself after endless gay hate taunting. He was only one of 4 kids from the same school who killed themselves that year. Now Mohat's parents are suing the school's administrators and teachers. They're not trying to profit from their child's death. They just want recognition that the school acknowledges that Eric's death was as a result of bullycide. The bullying accumulated over time. In maths class, 2 or 3 picked on him constantly and mercilessly. Most of it was verbal, but they did things like sitting behind him and flicking him in the ear, sticking stuff in his hoodie and putting a razor shavings on his head. Out of class they would shove him in the lockers. Much of the taunting was related to him being considered gay, though Eric's parents said he'd never identified himself that way. Eric routinely ignored the teasing but complained to the teacher, who responded by moving the bullies' desks. The next day they were back and made it worse. They may have thought he was a snitch and the parents didn't know how bad it was. The court heard that on the day that Eric committed suicide, other students heard one of the bullies who had been harassing Eric say to him, "Why don't you just go home and shoot yourself, no one would miss you." The teen took a legally registered gun from his father's bureau, locked himself in his room and shot himself in the head. The problem is that kids like Carl and Eric are not isolated cases. Conservative estimates show that around 30% of all teenage suicides in the United States are because of their sexuality. That's about 1 kid killing himself or herself every 5 hours. Whilst it's heartening to know that there are these days many, many more kids who do feel that they're able to come out to family and friends, there's also a percentage who not only struggle with their burgeoning sexuality, but indeed find it impossible to cope with, sink into deep depression, and many commit suicide. Why should such a state of affairs exist? Western society is obsessed with gay issues, but rarely from a positive standpoint. Kids listen to their parents making negative comments about gay news articles, and their homophobia can down a kid's spirit in an instant if the kid already knows that they're gay themselves. If the kid's a loner and has no close friends to confide in, or worse still, is perpetually bullied at school by his peers, his or her world suddenly becomes unbearable. He can't tell his parents because now in his mind they'll hate him, and worse still, throw him out of the family household. He can't tell anyone at school because he doesn't want to make the harassment any worse than it already is. If the family is religious, as many US families are, the kids grow up with all the stuff about being unnatural, going against God, sinning, being possessed by demons, going to hell, and all the rest of the ridiculous nonsense that they've been forced to believe since year dot. The kid reaches puberty and realises that only kids of the same sex attract him or her. They try to deny it to themselves, but you can't change the way that nature intended you. Imagine the turmoil within the kid's mind. He or she can struggle on for a couple of years or more, but the negative reinforcements around him only succeed in making him feel that he is bad, twisted, useless. An abomination, one kid told me his dad called him. Until it gets to the point where he can no longer stand the mental anguish. Suicide seems like his only way out, and unfortunately, many succeed first time. The parents are often oblivious to the fact that their child was gay because it was always kept so well hidden from them. Because of this, we can never know the true number of gay kids who choose death as a relief from what seems like an impossible existence within the world they know. Unfortunately, this will continue until homophobia disappears from our society and becomes as ridiculous in people's minds as denying women the vote. If you are a parent or a caring adult, what can you do to try to abate the huge number of teen suicides? If a kid suddenly starts complaining of illness at school time, there's a very real possibility they may be getting bullied. If the bullying is homophobic and the kid realises that he is indeed gay but is not yet ready to come out to his parents, he may also keep the bullying a secret from them for fear of them finding out. You should look for changes in youth, such as talking about taking their own life, feeling sad or hopeless about the future. Also look for changes in eating or sleeping habits, and even losing the desire to take part in their favourite activities. As difficult as teenagers can sometimes be, try to keep communications with them as open and honest as possible, and let them know that no matter what, you will always be there for them. Don't always assume that the kid's problems are just teen angst and that they'll grow out of it. Your positive intervention could save his or her life. For a rundown of what to look out for, see the column on the right under More Info. That's it for now. Bye.